Well, hello there and welcome back to the show. This is another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast, a show that provides insight and tools to build the life and homestead of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. Today is Monday, February 14th, 2022, and we are reading from The Rudder of the Day. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this book, as we read in the introduction, quote, Henry Ward Beecher said, "The first hour is the rudder of the day, the golden hour. Since I have discovered that principle, I have seen its truth confirmed in many ways. Be careful how you start your morning. You are planting the seeds for what that day will hold. If you get up late, grab a cup of coffee and a Twinkie, rush to work fuming at the idiots in traffic, and drop down exhausted at your desk at 8:10, you have just set the tone for your day. Everything will seem like pressure and your best efforts will be greatly diluted. The importance of planting wholesome, life-enriching thoughts in our minds in that first hour of the day cannot be overemphasized. I never read the paper first thing in the morning, no matter how important it may seem to know the news. The news is filled with rape, murder, pestilence, and heartache, and that is not the input I want in my brain. Later in the day, I can scan the news for anything related to my areas of interest and quickly sort through what I need. But I carefully protect that first hour of the day, making sure that all input is positive, clean, pure, creative, and inspirational. And that was part of how I began my morning today. And the reading from this book written by Dan Miller is something that I definitely wanted to share with you. So let's dive right into it, shall we? The title of today's reading is Vocation, Career, or Job. And we read, are you living out your calling, or do you just have a job? There are three words that tend to be used interchangeably, and they shouldn't be. Vocation is the most profound of the three, and it must incorporate calling, purpose, mission, and destiny. This is the big picture that many people often never identify for themselves. It's what you're doing in life that makes a difference for you, that builds meaning for you, and that you can look back on in your later years to see the impact you've made on the world. Stephen Covey, in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says that we all want, quote, to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy, close quote. Our vocation will leave a legacy. The word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call. It suggests that you are listening for something that is calling out to you, something that is particular to you. A calling is something you have to listen for. If one looks at the derivations of the words vocation and career, you will immediately get a feel for the difference between them. Career comes originally from the Latin word for cart, and later from the Middle French word for racetrack. Webster's dictionary defines career as, quote, to run or move at full speed, rush wildly. In other words, you can go around and around really fast for a long time, but never get anywhere. That is why in today's volatile work environment, even professionals with careers like physician, attorney, CPA, dentist, and engineer may choose to get off the expected track and choose another career. A career is a line of work, but it's not necessarily the only way to fulfill your calling. You can have different careers at different points in your life. Job is the most specific and immediate of the three terms. It has to do with one's daily activities that produce income or a paycheck. The dictionary defines job as a lump portion, a task, chore, or duty. In today's rapidly changing workplace, the average job is 3.2 years in length, meaning the average person just entering the workplace will have 14 to 16 different jobs in his or her lifetime. Thus, the job surely cannot be the critical definition of one's vocation or calling. Ideally, your career will be a subset of your vocation, and your job will be a subset of your career. As an example, if part of your vocation is to help reduce pain and suffering in the world, you may choose being a nurse as your career. There are plenty of jobs for nurses. Thus, losing a job should never change your calling. If you are off track in your job, simply go back to your vocation to get ideas for a new application of that vocation. And finally, before we ask a question to provide some direction for today, let's take a look at a quote from the Bible. And we read from the book of Ephesians, chapter 4, verse 3. I urge you to walk worthy of the calling you have received, with all humility and greatness, with patience, accepting one another in love, diligently keeping the unity of the Spirit with the peace that binds us. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope at your calling. And finally, the question that provides some direction for today is, do you know your calling, or are you just working a job? Yeah, guys, do you know your calling? Or are you just working your job? Well, I don't know about you, but I know about me. And that's really all I can speak of. I can share my experience. I can answer this question with my own stories in the hopes that they relate and you find them beneficial. I should have brushed some more snow off of my truck this morning. It's we got a little dusting of snow last night. You guys have got the week off, but this Monday morning I am headed into town. Got to stop at the bank, and then I'm heading out of town to Stuver Auto Spring in Akron. So I've got about a 45-minute drive ahead of me once I get into town. Actually, it's probably 45 minutes in total, but to get into town and to get to the bank, that'll give me a typical podcast segment length and a good stopping point as well, and a chance to grab a cup of coffee before I hit the road. So the question today, do you know your calling, or are you just working a job? And first of all, I'd like to say something about this word just. I believe that when we use this in our everyday vernacular, that it is, even if we don't know it, we use it in a demeaning, somewhat dismissive way. What I mean by that, for example, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm just a mailman. If you could say that, or, well, for a living I do a number of different things, but my primary source of employment is being a full-time mail carrier. And then that opens the door for some other dialogue about what it is that's going on in addition to that, because so many of us define ourselves by our job. Now, I have any more in life, guys, at the age of... My age is irrelevant. It's always been this way for me. I was hanging out with my brother Saturday night. We were talking after the kids went to bed. And we were talking about, you know, where he might move to. So he's looking at like a home to raise the kids in now. As we were talking about different locations and why and the pros and cons, and we're talking about friendships with people, and I realized that I don't have many friends. I have very few friendships. I have a lot of acquaintances, but friends I can really count on one hand maybe. And the more change that I make with this life, moving down this road towards building the life and homestead of my dreams, I realize that it's not aligned with a lot of people, and a lot of people that used to be my friends, and they think it's cool, and I'm sure that in a lot of people's minds we're still friends, but there's been so much transition in life, transition in thought process, transition in the why we do this, the how we do it, and what we're doing for that matter, that all of this seemed like great conversation to have when we're talking about our vocation, our career, or our job. And I remember talking about this topic before. I've made my way through this book, The Rudder of the Day. We're cycling back through it. I don't exactly remember when that topic was, when we covered this in the show before. But the show is less than 2 years old. It's an interesting thing. And there's a lot of a lot of talk and a lot of dialogue about this very thing, vocation, career, and job. I've worked in the green industry ever since the age of 19. I've always felt like a nurseryman, felt compelled to come back to the career of being a nurseryman. But then a nice career, things have changed, and we've gone from forward thinking to simply thinking about the here and now, the current moment, this season. And that's fine. I accept that not everyone's going to think like me, so I accept that I just have a job, right? And as we read, job is the most immediate of the three terms. It has to do with one's daily activities that produce income or a paycheck. The dictionary defines job as a lump portion, a task or chore or duty. In today's rapidly changing workplace, the average job is 3.2 years in length. My average jobs over the years have been shorter, quite frankly, even though I've managed to maintain jobs under one company, both here and in my past career. I guess we could call my current employer a career because I've worked several different projects, and each one almost being a different job. And effectively, I'm no different than a lot of my job hopping friends. It's just that I've hopped jobs under and within the same company. So that's fine. And I guess the reality is I've reached the point where I can no longer hop jobs within this company. So I'm going to ride this current one out until the cons outweigh the pros. And it's as simple as that. What I'm feeling called to do is work with my family on the homestead. You know, we read that ideally your career will be a subset of your vocation, and your job will be a subset of your career. As an example, if part of your vocation is to help reduce pain and suffering in the world, you may choose being a nurse as your career. There are plenty of jobs for nurses. Thus, losing a job should never change your calling. Okay, so that also was something that stood out to me and was really quite significant. When I read it this morning, when I reread it, going down the driveway, and then reading it again now. I'll let me let this truck pass me here and scoot over so I can pull into the bank, wrap up this episode, withdraw some cash, and hit the road. All right, I'm going to write on this. I'm going to write on that because it's going to give me some insight. And this is where maybe I need a whiteboard so I can just stand. You know, here's the deal. To invigorate some thought, freshen up, wink wink, get some dry erase markers and go to town on that whiteboard. Let's do some work to figure out what our vocation, our career, and our job really means. Clearly, I am just in that job. But if we look at an example of if part of our vocation being to help reduce pain and suffering in the world, and we choose being a nurse as our career in order to make that happen, how can I integrate my goals with my family and the long-term growth and development of a homestead to support and feed our family and loved ones in the long run? How can that integrate with vocation, calling, and job? Because without a doubt, I most certainly feel that I most certainly feel grateful for the the week off, because already in February, I am experiencing what it's going to take this season. And what I mean is it's on. This season, it's back to how it was a few years ago. And what I mean by that is 6-day weeks, 3/4 of the year, and long days, consistent grinding, and we just gotta get it done. And I'm ready, because what this means for me is that my job is like Saturday was with my father. I feel called to work with my family the best type of experience that I had over the past couple of years with regard to any kind of growth and development of a business was taking a trip to Wake Robin Foods up in Cleveland, which is a larger fermented food distributor, producer. And we visited their commercial kitchen space in the old Hildebrandt building, which has history with my father and his family, because way back in the day when my great-grandfather was a butcher, apparently we would bring meats there, if I have my facts straight. But anyways, the calling with that and the experience with him during that time made me realize that A, he's got a good product, B, he's got a good process, because everything that he's done was validated by our observations and dialogue with everyone at Wake Robin Foods, and C, with the work ethic that I have, I believe that we would be able to replicate their operations and scale up accordingly, and that could become my new career as I write this next chapter in life. And we're there. We installed a new Chicago Faucets TF99 model spray wand in the 3-bay sink in the commercial kitchen yesterday. The commercial kitchen is getting ready for inspection. And no matter what is happening in life, in other aspects of life, I am moving forward with my own life, with my own family, because that's all I can do. So I'm going to wrap it up and leave it with that, guys. Again, I will reread this last quote one final time, because we want to remember that our job is the most specific and immediate of the three terms. It has to do with one's daily activities that produce income or a paycheck. The dictionary defines job as a lump portion, a task, chore, or duty. In today's rapidly changing workplace, the average job is 3.2 years in length, meaning that the average person just entering the workplace will have 14 to 16 different jobs in his or her working lifetime. Thus, the job cannot be the critical definition of one's vocation or calling. Ideally, your career will be a subset of your vocation, and your job will be a subset of your career. As an example, if part of your vocation is to help reduce pain and suffering in the world, you may choose being a nurse as your career. There are plenty of jobs for nurses. Thus, losing a job should never change your calling. If you are off track in your job, simply go back to your vocation to get new ideas for a new application of that vocation. Guys, I hope that you found value in the words of Dan Miller today. I will link to the book and much of what we discussed in the show notes for your reference. And if you like what you hear, I would encourage you to share it in your social networks. And I would also encourage you to join the community that we have on Telegram at t.me/allaroundgrowth. That is a great way to connect with myself and other like-minded people who are doing exactly what we're talking about here on the show, which is building the lives and homesteads of our dreams. So with that, I hope that you have a great day. a great week. And this is Rob Kaiser, and thank you. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.